Power fantasy. It's a genre that us weebs love, because let's be honest, the real world sucks for most of us. Whether we were made fun of growing up, struggling our way through our pointless lives, working ridiculously hard only to end up in a 9 to 5 job that we do not care about, having to wake up every day to get reminded of the expectation that our family or society has put on us, and regretting mistakes that we have made in the past because we're too dumb to logically think through our actions. And power fantasy allows us to escape the problems that we have made in our day-to-day life. That's why the medium is so popular, even though most of the shows are just complete trash. I mean, the numbers and sales don't lie. Power fantasy allows us to live through a cool badass MC who is so overpowered that we can break through the whole entire system. It's like you're allowed to use hacks, and while being invincible, you will also get to collect girls like their Pokemon cards while playing a video game. It's literally the best feeling for any person to have, no matter the gender. Who doesn't want to be a mysterious cool person who's really talented at something and everyone admires and wants to know about? That's why in every single season of anime, there's at least 2 shows and like 5 series of mangas being released in this genre. And for the longest time, Sword Online was the king of power fantasy. Everything came before this show was just meh. Sure, some shows were entertaining, but after a while, I started to get bored of power fantasy as a whole, because it was just on a constant loop of releasing the same show over and over again with like one cool new twist. Until one day, where I stumbled across an ad about a manga called Solo Leveling. And usually, I don't click on ads because I don't fucking trust the ads. But from looking at the cool cover, I just click on it just to see what happens. Thank God I didn't get a fucking virus. And when I started reading the manga, it was like watching SAO all over again, but better. I love every second of it, and even had one of my favorite things, which is racism. It took years upon years of build-up by the Japanese only for it to be beaten by one Korean SAO ripoff. When this manga ended, I thought it would be done. I honestly did not think any studio was gonna pick this show up because of racism. But boys, it's coming. The greatest power fantasy anime is coming, and it's going to be, well, yeah, it's gonna be great. Solo Leveling will be the greatest power fantasy anime of all time. And when I say this, it's a fact, because it's just a better SAO. Kirito, get the fuck out of here. All the shows in winter 2024 are nothing compared to Sung's muscle. Actually, this one's pretty good. You actually want to improve in the real world and get out there and socialize and network with people. What makes Solo Leveling the greatest power fantasy anime of all time is it's a zero to hero journey, but does it with swag. If you compare other power fantasy shows, the main character gets strong and becomes a hero, but they do it without other aspects like having muscle, being completely dripped out with Gucci, YSL, and other expensive brands that I can never afford in my entire life because it's so fucking expensive. Sung also gets taller, a lot more handsome, and gets a lot richer. There's even a panel of him getting validation from every woman he walks by. Man, Korean culture is built upon insecurities. When Sung does the eye glowing thing and says arise, it makes you feel like you're the cool badass dude doing it. But with the Japanese power fantasy, you don't really feel as cool. You feel more like a nerdy, shy, cringe edgelord who's really strong. And I've come up with a theory on why this is, and it comes down to Korean society's culture. Koreans love to be cool. I mean, just look at K-pop. With all that plastic, you're bound to look cool. Even when they're playing professional video games, they're just cool. And Japan is more about being content and humble with yourself and not to brag about having nice things. That's why Korean is in so much debt from buying luxury brands, but they're just cool, and us weebs want that. Us weebs don't really have money, we're minimalist, we don't dress well, and overall, we just have that uncool energy. When we see Kirito, sure, he is cool, but Sung, holy hell, the drip can't be matched. When Kirito beats Aincrad, he has to come back to reality. He's not tall, he's not rich, he's not strong. He's just an average nerdy gamer. When Sung comes back to reality, he's stronger than ever. The concept of playing a video game in real life is much cooler than hopping on a computer, putting on a VR headset, and traveling to another world through a computer. It's more appealing. When we watch these shows, we kind of live through these characters. We want to be able to achieve all of the aspects of what makes a cool guy, and find a hot girl that obsesses with us and wants to start a family with us. For me, I think most weebs would love to have a lot of aspects of our life improve, and Solo Leveling depicts it perfectly. From being so rich and strong, Sung is able to protect his family members and bring his mother back by literally curing cancer. Korea just does power fantasy better because their society and culture overlaps with what the viewers want out of a power fantasy show, more than how the Japanese culture does it. And if you don't believe me, let me ask you this. If you had a choice between wanting to be Kirito or Sung, who would you choose? Yeah, no shit. The journey that Sung goes through is the same as Kirito, where you're a weak dude from the very beginning, but you have a secret power or you have a lot of knowledge on how things work within the system itself, and you become great. But Sung's journey is more impactful and has a lot more meaning than how Kirito or any of these characters. He doesn't travel to another world. He doesn't become strong just to be strong. He doesn't get girls just for validation. He does all this work just to feed and protect his family. Now, there are things that I'm curious on what they're going to do when the anime comes out, like the racism. Okay, not the racism, but the studio that's going to be directing everything is Japanese. And I have many questions on how they're going to tackle many situations like the Juju Island arc. What are they going to do with Goto? What's going to happen with the politics between each country? Is Sung going to have Japanese culture built within him? So that means he doesn't get taller. He doesn't get to flex his Gucci drip. He's not going to be as cool in general. And is the animation going to be as sharp as how the manga did it? A lot of the shots in the manga look so hard to animate. There's so many particle effects, shadows, and everything. It looks so sharp. It looks better than any manga I have seen. I swear, the shadows that he summons are completely CGI. I'm gonna throw my computer out the fucking trash can. Every single manga adaptation that has come to anime doesn't need to adapt to the culture, but the way that Solo Leveling is set up, it has to adapt to it. But we'll just have to see what happens. I'm excited for Solo Leveling to do well, but I'm even more excited that this show will set a new standard for other power fantasies. It will impact the whole entire genre. The only show that I have enjoyed recently from Power Fantasy is The Shadow of the Eminent. I just can't seem to enjoy this medium anymore. They're just spitting out the same nonsense that isn't really entertaining whatsoever. What a lot of Power Fantasy fails to realize is that Power Fantasy is meant for weebs. This isn't a rom-com or a shonen. Solo Leveling doesn't do anything differently. It just fulfills the fantasy that every weeb has to the extreme. All the changes, unique personality, different world doesn't really matter. We just want a dude that was a loser that we can all relate to, get a power up, start grinding, get all the girls, and come back wowing everyone to get their validation, and that's it. It's supposed to be repetitive, but the fun part is the fighting and instant gratification that you get from being cool. When you read Solo Leveling, whenever it starts to get boring, Sung just comes in with the Gucci drip, has his eye glow up, and beats the enemy with style. And we can't get that a lot with Power Fantasies nowadays. There's a reason why people call it Power Fantasy trash. It's meant for people to turn off their brain and enjoy living through a cool badass dude. As humans, we think complexity is great, but we reward simplicity and stupidity. But we like simplicity and stupidity when it's actually cool. In most of these shows, the characters be doing completely overpowered things, but it just comes off as cringe and stupid. Sung does the same thing, but just less cringe and with swag. Even with just the little things like the way that he interacts with people, you just know that he has a lot of confidence with the way that he carries himself. Well, with Kirito, he's just an average gamer. Outside the video game, man can't even hold proper frame when walking. Bruh. A lot of these characters are really awkward. Why? You're the main protagonist. Have some confidence within yourself. I like the ego. Most people like the ego, and Sung gives off maximum confidence, and he can also be pretty egotistical sometimes. As a young dude, and most people who are watching Power Fantasy, we don't want someone who is shy and timid. We want some cockiness and aggression with swag. There's a reason why characters like Gojo are so popular. They exude maximum confidence, and they can be pretty egotistical sometimes. It's not like these characters don't have the ability to have the ego, but for whatever reason, they're shy. Sung ignites the confidence with every battle that he goes into. Without doubt, there will be many problems that will arise for the Solo Leveling anime. The racism, but nothing is perfect, and I expect a lot of issues to pop up. The animation isn't going to be crispy. Sung Drip Woo might not even be called Sung Drip Woo. He's probably going to be Japanese with a Japanese name. However, we compare when SAO first got released and Solo Leveling's release. Solo Leveling will be a lot better. And it's not because it's a newer budget, that's why it would be a lot better, but the way that the arc has written everything is just better. Even if the Solo Leveling anime fails, which I don't think it will, at least it's not as bad as SAO. Unless the CGI shadows comes through, and if it does, then we're fucked.